For the majority of human history, we actually had no real clear way to see our own reflection. The only glimpse that we would have caught of ourselves would have been in water, ripply, wavy, and distorted. This means that we existed without a secure or a fixed sense for how we actually looked. We existed through the eyes of other people, seeing ourselves reflected back in the expressions and the reactions of our families and our community, rather than in a piece of glass. The invention of the mirror fundamentally altered human self-awareness. Suddenly, we were able to observe ourselves, to pick ourselves apart, to scrutinize, judge, and compare ourselves to everyone else that we could see. This gave rise to self-consciousness in a way that had never existed before. If mirrors changed our self-perception, then the digital age has completely shattered it. Scroll on social media even just for a few minutes and you will probably be bombarded with a relentless stream of advice, tips, tricks, and so-called miracle products that all promise to be the ultimate secret to eternal youth. Serums that claim to erase fine lines overnight, facials that reverse time, and injections that promise to freeze our faces at 22. Advertisements and influencers screaming at us, promising that with just one more product, we might actually be able to outsmart time itself. With this cream and this serum and this peptide and this routine, we could immortalize our faces, keeping us frozen in time forever. We have been conditioned to see the natural process of aging as some sort of like personal flaw, and it's something that we need to battle against. As if the proof of our very existence, the proof that we have been living, the proof that we have been alive, the lines on our face from laughing, the lines in between our eyebrows from concentrating or from grieving, and the softening of our features are something to feel ashamed of. We glorify and romanticize the qualities that we usually associate with youth, such as being carefree and being sexually desirable. But we're so quick to dismiss the wisdom and the freedom that we earn as we age. Women have been conditioned to believe that our power lies in our beauty, our sexual desirability, and our fertility. These things all change, obviously, and naturally as you get older, but it's framed as something that you lose. Under patriarchy, it is framed as a decline in a woman's worth, a decline in her value, rather than an evolution. Why is it so bad to show the signs of our life on our face? When did existing and living a long life, which is a privilege denied to so many people, become something to be ashamed of? Why are we so obsessed with looking as young as possible, and why are we so terrified of aging? Is it actually the process of aging that scares us? Do we not want to have grey hair? Do we not want to have wrinkles? Do we not want to have creaky bones and aches and pains and going to the doctor more? Do we not want to have mobility issues? Or are we just scared of being perceived as less desirable because that's how we've been conditioned to value ourselves? And I don't think our obsession with looking young only stems from selfies and social media and mirrors and being pushed to be a consumer of multi-billion-dollar beauty industry that obviously preys on our insecurities, although all of those things certainly do play a part. I think a lot of our fear of aging actually stems from our existence within the patriarchy. Women in particular have such a complex relationship with aging because so much of our perceived value is tied up in how we look. I do believe that a lot of our obsession with youth or being perceived as looking young is a direct reflection of our existence under patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system of power that privileges men, particularly white, hetero men, over women and marginalized people. And it isn't just about individual men holding power. It's an interwoven system of political, economic, and cultural structures that reinforces male dominance and female subordination. It shapes everything: how governments function, how wealth is distributed, how relationships operate, how the dynamics of households are all laid out, how beauty is defined, how aging is perceived, and even how we see ourselves. From childhood, women and girls are subtly and sometimes explicitly trained to seek male validation, to be pleasing, desirable, accommodating, and always acutely aware of how they are being perceived by men. This conditioning runs really deep, and it shapes how we as women move through the world. Almost every single book, TV show, or movie frames a woman's happiness around love and male validation. Female characters rarely have storylines about self-discovery, power, or purpose without romance being the central theme. Meanwhile, men in media are shown going on adventures, saving the world, and pursuing ambitions, with or without a love interest. Disney princesses and rom-com heroines are almost always rewarded with love at the end, reinforcing the idea that a woman's story is not fully complete until she is chosen by a man. Women who choose to remain single or child-free are criticized, pitied, or seen as failures in a way that men never really are. Successful women like Oprah and Jennifer Aniston are still asked about their lack of marriage or kids, while no one asks George Clooney why it took him decades to settle down. Beauty standards are designed to make a woman prioritize attractiveness over everything else. Aging is demonized because it makes a woman less desirable to men. A lot of women are subconsciously or consciously always trying to appeal to men, and this is absolutely for sure true for me. I had to unlearn that as I got older, and I was even talking to someone about this recently, that I always would look at myself and then think about how I would look if men were looking at me, and then adjust myself to try and accommodate what I think a man would approve of, or what I think a man would like, not what I would like, not what my friends would like, nothing to do with anything other than just a fake audience, a fake man who was looking at me through the eyes of myself. And I found this quote that I think basically sums up that experience, and so many people who I talk to, this resonates so much, so I'm going to read out this quote. Male fantasies. Is everything run by male fantasies? Up on a pedestal or down on your knees, it's all a male fantasy, that you're strong enough to take what they dish out, or else too weak to do anything about it. Even pretending you aren't catering to male fantasies is a male fantasy. Pretending you're unseen, pretending you have a life of your own, that you can wash your feet and comb your hair unconscious of the ever-present watcher, peering through the keyhole in your own head, if nowhere else. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. And that is a quote by Margaret Atwood. And oh my God, when I heard that, that made so much sense to me, because that is how I felt literally since I hit puberty up until I was maybe 27 or 28. I literally was so used to just centering men. And for most of that time, especially after I had my child, I was celibate. I wasn't dating anyone. Sometimes I was dating people, but I wasn't actively looking for someone, and I wasn't actually actively trying to attract someone or trying to date someone. I was celibate for a lot of that time, but I still had an invisible man in me. I had this invisible audience that were men that I was still trying to appease, and I was still trying to cater to them, even though I didn't want male attention. I didn't want to date anyone. I didn't want to have a boyfriend. I just wanted to be left alone, but I still had this man inside my head who I was trying to please. And anyway. So if that makes sense to you, then you are absolutely welcome here. So we will be exploring this obsession with youth and this fear of aging through the Jungian archetypes, and they're also neo-pagan archetypes as well: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. So let's start with the maiden. The maiden is a young woman. She is seen as desirable, beautiful, and full of potential. So traits such as beauty, fertility, desirability, fuckability, purity, innocence, submission are all valued in the maiden under patriarchy, and these traits are usually assigned to youth. A young woman's appearance often dictates her social value more than her intelligence, her creativity, her passions, her hobbies, or any of her other achievements. Virginity is historically tied to women's worth, with cultures valuing untouched women for marriage, while condemning those who explore their sexuality, even though we know this is a normal and a completely healthy thing to do as you get older. And women are also valued for their reproductive capabilities, and young people are obviously associated with higher fertility. So under patriarchy, the ideal young woman is sexually inexperienced, but also available for sex. So make that make sense. Young women who are in their late teens, early 20s will have less relationship experience than a woman in her 30s. So a woman in her 30s has probably been in and out of a few relationships or situations. She probably has more dating experience than a 20-year-old. So she knows what she likes. She knows what she doesn't like. She knows what her deal breakers are. She knows what red flags are. She knows what to look out for. She also might be a bit more opinionated and a bit more assertive and sure of herself, a little bit more secure than someone who's in their early 20s. She knows what mistreatment looks like. So she knows if she's being mistreated by someone, she won't be as easily coerced or swayed. She may be less agreeable and less compliant, and she might be a bit more solid in her career, finances, or her own life. She would be far less susceptible to falling for like empty promises from a man because she's heard it all before. Probably she's learned her lesson and she knows better. Whereas a 20-year-old who doesn't have that much life experience or doesn't have that as much experience dating or existing under these systems will be a little bit more easy to convince of something if they don't have the same experience. So if being inexperienced, submissive, insecure, and being easily swayed are all characteristics that are valued by young women in our society, then it's not ridiculous to jump to the conclusion that we're easier to control when we have these traits. We're easier to sway, we're easier to take advantage of, and all of these traits are usually associated with younger people. So there's this thing called the halo effect as well, which I wanted to talk about, and I'm just going to read off a few bits from my computer here of what I found really interesting about the halo effect. So the halo effect is basically where we will see someone as attractive or someone who fits into society's prescribed little window of what attractiveness is, and we will assume that they are good people. So when we see someone who is conventionally attractive, we subconsciously assume that they are intelligent, kind, competent, and trustworthy. And it actually works the other way as well. If someone is perceived as unattractive, we may subconsciously assume that they're less intelligent, less friendly, less competent, even though there's absolutely no evidence for this whatsoever. So the halo effect is a huge reason why beauty and youth are forms of unspoken social currency. Research shows that attractive people earn higher salaries, are more likely to be promoted, receive lighter prison sentences, and are assumed to be more honest and capable. Because of this bias, attractive people often receive advantages in life without even realizing it. They may find it easier to get hired, be taken more seriously, and even be given the benefit of the doubt in social and professional situations. Since youth is tied to beauty in patriarchal societies, the halo effect reinforces the obsession with staying young. When women are young and conventionally attractive, they are assumed to be valuable, charming, and worthy of attention. As they age and no longer fit the youthful beauty standard, they are dismissed, overlooked, and seen as less competent. Okay, so there you go. So that's exactly what I was getting to with the whole halo effect, is that people are actually treated much better when they are perceived as being attractive. And so much of women's perceived beauty and perceived value and attractiveness is tied up in youth. So you are actually treated better when you are beautiful and when you are young. So it's no wonder that women are trying to hold on to their youth or hold on to their beauty, because they know society is going to treat them much more differently as they age out of the maiden. So let's age out of our maiden now, and let's go and explore the mother archetype. So as we age out of our maiden, and maybe by the time we get into our early 30s and our 40s, we are in our mother archetype. So you could be in your mother archetype regardless of if you actually had children. So when we age out of our maiden stage and we are no longer seen as desirable or sexually available to men, our social worth is defined by our duty. We shift from desirability into duty. So as we age out of our maiden into our mother, things change. So the patriarchy has twisted the mother archetype into a tool of control, defining a woman's value through her ability to give birth, nurture others, and exist in service to everyone else. especially men and children. She's expected to sacrifice her time, her body, her emotions, her career, her identity for her family or for those around her. So the mother archetype, this is a woman in her 30s and her 40s, is judged harshly for failing at motherhood, whether she has children or not. If you do become a mother, you will be expected to sacrifice everything, losing your identity, your autonomy, your career, your freedom, and your body. If you don't have kids, you will be judged, criticized, questioned, and you will be seen as like less of a woman for rejecting your natural purpose. If you have kids and you also have a career, you are going to be seen as selfish for not dedicating yourself 100% to the kids. And if you are a stay-at-home mom, you will be just a mom. And if you're listening to this on audio, I'm doing like air quotations, just a mom, and you are not contributing anything to society. Working mothers are expected to work as if they don't have children, and they're expected to mother and tend to the home and the family as if they don't have a job. Women are often told that motherhood is the most important thing that they will ever do, yet once they actually become mothers, they receive little support, respect, or resources to actually thrive in the role of being a mom. So is this all starting to make sense? That women are only valued under patriarchy for what they can offer and what they can sacrifice. The mother is revered, but only when she exists to be in service to others. How women are treated and valued in society will change massively as we get older. If society reacts to us completely differently, depending on how youthful and radiant we look, then it makes perfect sense that we might have a hard time letting that go and stepping into more of our mother or our crone, because we know that we are going to be treated very, very differently. Because a woman's worth is tied to her beauty and her youth, the beauty industry knows this and profits off this. It profits and preys off our insecurities. Anti-aging creams, Botox, fillers, and plastic surgery all push this idea that aging is a problem to be solved. Older women who embrace their natural aging process are often seen as letting themselves go, instead of being celebrated for their wisdom, experience, and power. The global beauty industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and a massive portion of that profit comes from convincing women that aging is a flaw, a problem that needs to be solved, delayed, or even reversed. The corporations, usually run by men, are profiting from keeping women in a constant state of anxiety and obsession about their appearance. The fear of aging is manufactured by a system that profits off a woman's insecurities. It's not biology, and it's not natural to fear the process of getting older. It might be normal and natural to have concerns about having joint problems, having less mobility, maybe being more sick or being more tired, or like cognitive decline, or any of these kind of things that can come with aging. I think it's normal to kind of worry about that and to try and take steps while we're still young to try and like support ourselves as we get old and to support our future selves. But to actually have a fear of looking old or having grey hair or having wrinkles, it's not normal. It's not biology. It's just manufactured. The beauty industry works by creating insecurities and then selling us the solution. Capitalism, baby. First, they will create a problem and they will plant the seeds of insecurity. And next, they will offer a solution, usually an overpriced, overhyped product, or a time-consuming treatment, or dangerous, expensive plastic surgeries. Men are not held to the same standards at all. Men are allowed to age naturally. Wrinkles, grey hair, and signs of aging are often seen as distinguished and masculine. There's no equivalent anti-aging pressure on men. They are not bombarded with products, advertisements, to make them feel like their value declines with time. A man with grey hair is seen as a silver fox, and a woman with grey hair is seen as letting herself go. The beauty industry doesn't market anti-aging as aggressively to men because patriarchy allows men to age without losing their social value. So let's explore our last archetype, the crone. So under patriarchy, the loss of menstruation often signifies a loss of purpose. Nothing more to offer, no more value. In a system that has reduced women to their reproductive capabilities, their youth, and their desirability, menopause can be seen as the moment a woman becomes irrelevant in the eyes of society. A woman who no longer menstruates is often perceived as having nothing left to offer, no longer young, no longer fertile, no longer fuckable in a way that patriarchy demands. She is not the maiden whose youth is romanticized, nor the mother whose ability to nurture is still seen as valuable. She is pushed into a space of invisibility, as if she has aged out of being significant entirely. In a lot of ancient cultures, older women were respected as healers, as leaders, as sources of wisdom. But patriarchy fears women who can no longer be controlled through sexual desirability, marriage, or motherhood. The crone is not bound by male desire or the need to nurture others. She exists for herself. She possesses so much knowledge and so much experience, which makes her unbelievably powerful. She is way less likely to conform, submit, or tolerate oppression. And this is a threat to the patriarchy, because a woman who no longer seeks male validation, beauty standards, or reproductive roles is free. The crone is often turned into a hag, a witch, a crazy cat lady, and older women are often portrayed in the media as ugly, bitter, and evil. So think about any sort of like fairy tale where the older woman in the village was always some like crazy witch, and the younger woman is beautiful and desired and good. And historically, women who embraced the crone archetype, the midwives, the healers, the spiritual leaders, were targeted as witches. Witch hunts, especially in Europe and America, were often used to eliminate older women or single women or child-free women or unmarried women who had knowledge of medicine, herbs, and healing. So that made them independent from male-dominated institutions like the church. These women were seen as dangerous because they did not conform to the roles of the maiden or the mother. They probably did conform to the roles of the mother, I would say, with each other, but not towards the men in society. They probably were looking after each other, but not the men. And the men didn't like that, so they were called witches and they were hunted. Instead of being honored for their wisdom, they were burned, hanged, or even just driven into isolation. In Japan, menopause is referred to as kenonki, which translates to second spring. Rather than viewing it as a loss, it is seen as an opportunity for rebirth, self-discovery, and freedom from societal expectations. Many Japanese women describe menopause as a time to focus on their own passions, their own personal growth, rather than focusing on and serving other people. The Moso people of China, who are often called the Kingdom of Daughters, practice a matriarchal system where older women control the wealth, the property, and the family decisions. This is one of the few societies on planet Earth where women are the central figures of authority. The women do not traditionally marry. Instead, they live in extended family households where the oldest women are the head of the home. Unlike patriarchal societies, aging for the Moso women does not mean a loss of status. It increases their power and their influence. And Pamela Anderson, who kind of disappeared from the public eye for quite a while, who is known for being one of the hottest, most beautiful, sexiest, most desired women to ever walk the planet. She came back into the public eye over the last few years, and she famously went makeup free in Paris Fashion Week in 2023, and it got a lot of people talking, for better or for worse. People were actually shocked that after 20-30 years of her not being on Baywatch, in the 20 or 30 years since she had been on Baywatch, that she had actually aged and that she looked so different. People are actually shocked that a human has fallen victim to the natural process of aging, as if she had failed or as if she has done something wrong. And I also wanted to say as well, Pamela Anderson looks fucking great. She looks stunning. It doesn't matter how old or how young she is just a beautiful woman, and it wouldn't matter how old she is anyway. But I just wanted to read some of the quotes that I found about Pamela Anderson talking about aging. Also, I recommend following Pamela on Substack. She writes a lot on Substack, and I actually really enjoy reading what she puts out. I call it lifing, not aging, she said. Chasing youth is futile. All we can do is embrace who we are at this moment we are in, and be okay with where our feet stand right now. I absolutely love that, for sure. And it's just this like really grounding and really orienting to like, who are we today? Where is our feet? Where am I? Who am I? Who am I today? Not who was I when I was 20, not who was I when I was 17. Who am I today? And this is a caption that she posted on Instagram, which I absolutely love as well. Life humbles you As you grow old, you stop chasing the big things and you start valuing the little things: alone time, enough sleep, a good diet, long walks, and quality times with loved ones. Simplicity becomes the ultimate goal. So now Pamela Anderson has exited out of her Maiden. She was so famous in her Maiden stage when she was young, when she was the most desirable person on our screens for so long. And then she went into her mother phase of having children, being older, and then she disappeared. And now she's back as her Crone. And she has just said here that as you grow old, you stop chasing the big things and you start valuing the little things: alone time, enough sleep, a good diet, and long walks, and quality times with loved ones. She didn't once mention you start valuing how big your lips are, or how smooth your skin is, or how wrinkle free your face is. She's like, obviously she was focusing on that when she was younger because that's how she was valued. She's aged out of that now and she's fully in her Crone. And the things that she values now are things that have nothing to do with how she looks, nothing to do with how fuckable she is, nothing to do with how sexualized she is or how objectified she is, nothing to do with how fertile she is, nothing to do with what she has to offer people. It is all just, how can I look after myself? What do I need to do today? I want to go for a walk and I want to have a laugh and I want to have sleep and I want to hang out with my loved ones. So this is the things that she values today rather than valuing how desired she is. That sounds like freedom to me. That literally sounds like freedom. It sounds like freedom from the patriarchy. It sounds like freedom from the male gaze. It sounds like freedom from being obsessed and being our worth and our value being tied to how hot we are. That just sounds like freedom to me. So as I said before, our fear of aging is not natural. And yeah, I think it's completely normal and appropriate to have fears of the decline in our mobility, or the decline in our cognitive function, or things like that, or maybe a overall decline in our health as we get older and things like that. But the fear of looking old, or the fear of losing elasticity in our skin, the fear of being 50 or being 60 is not natural. It is carefully designed to keep us chasing an impossible standard and pouring all of our time, money, energy, and even just our emotional, mental bandwidth into battling the inevitable and trying to hold onto our perceived desirability. So what would it look like if we allowed ourselves to move away from the Maiden, move through the mother, away from the mother, into the Crone without fearing it? What would that look like? What if we stopped clinging to a version of ourselves designed almost entirely for male consumption, male validation and approval? What would it look like if we just accepted that yes, things are going to change, our faces are going to change, our bodies are going to change, how we are treated in society will change, and our roles might shift with age? What would it look like to just accept that the world will remind us in 1,000 subtle and obvious ways that we are no longer as gorgeous or youthful, as fertile as we should be? What if instead of seeing that as a loss, we welcomed it as an invitation to return to ourselves? If you are like me and most people who I work with and most people who I talk to, we have spent so much of our lives centering men, their attention, their validation, their gaze, consciously and subconsciously. We have measured our worth by how desired we are. But what if we actually stepped away from that? What would that look like to step away from that? What would it look like to find validation from other sources, from within, from our friends, from our communities, from our work, from our creativity, from our hobbies and interests and passions and values, instead of from a system that is designed to keep us insecure and at a constant war with our own face? We do not need to be looked at or desired by men in order to be valuable. We do not have to be young in order to be lovable. Can we change society overnight? No. But we can change how we exist within it. We can change how we orient to it. Instead of pouring our energy into being seen or approved by men, we can pour it into being genuinely fulfilled. We can focus on building richer friendships, exploring our hobbies and creativity. We can deepen our wisdom. We can take courses. We can be educated. We can read books. We can go traveling, and we can let ourselves just be pulled by our curiosity and joy into whatever happens to be sparking our interest at a particular time. What would it look like to center joy, curiosity, connection, and resonance rather than male validation? And when we stop apologizing for aging and stop chasing an impossible standard and stop needing permission to just exist and age, then maybe eventually society will have no option but to change too. And at the end of the day, aging is a privilege that is denied to so many people. And I don't know about you, but seeing how many children and young adults in Palestine that will never get the privilege to age. They will never know what it feels like to be 45. They will never know what it feels like to be 60. A lot of them don't even know and will never know what it feels like to be 3. It just kind of really reinforces in my brain how lucky we are to be alive and what a privilege it is to age, and how that privilege is denied, really unfairly, is denied to so many people. All of the signs of our life that are going to be etched onto our bodies and our skins. It's just proof that we're living life, and it's just proof that we exist, and that we laughed, and that we cried, and that we ate, and that we got pregnant and had babies. That's where the stretch marks come from. That's where all those tiger marks come from. And that is something to celebrate. That is not something to fear. That is something to celebrate. Just the stories of age and the evidence of life on our skin and on our faces. It is something to celebrate, not fear. So that's all I have for you for this week. And thank you so much for being here. I will see you for whatever I'm going to talk about next week. And I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the rest of your day.